Hey everybody, how you doing? Today's episode is brought to you by ThriveMarket.com. Are you trying to live a more healthy life but find organic and non-toxic products just too expensive or simply too hard to find? Then ThriveMarket.com is the online shopping club for you. It's sort of like Costco meets Whole Foods for everything healthy online. You'll get the best vegan, organic, and non-GMO brands up to 50% off retail prices shipped nationally right to your door for free within 2 to 3 days. When you become a member, ThriveMarket.com will donate a free membership to a low-income family, a teacher, or a veteran so we can all thrive together. You never have to pay full price for healthy food again. If you're ready to start saving, you'll love this. One grand prize winner will walk away with a free 1-year membership and $1,000 to spend on healthy foods at Thrive Market. And that's not all. 10 others will win a free 1-year membership too. So enter at ThriveMarket.com/richroll. Don't miss your chance to win big.
You can look at, I would say, 95% of all of the environmental issues out there, and you can trace them back to animal agriculture and the effect that animal agriculture creates, the havoc that it wreaks on these different environmental issues.
That's Suzy Amis Cameron, and this is the Rich Roll Podcast. The Rich Roll Podcast. Hey people, how you doing? What's going on? What's happening? Happy holidays. Do you have the holiday spirit? I got the holiday spirit. My name is Rich Roll. I am your host. Welcome to the show. This is the show where I do my best to have meaningful conversations with compelling individuals, people who are challenging social norms and breaking cultural paradigms to create a better world for all of us. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in today, for subscribing to the show on iTunes, for taking a moment to leave us a review on iTunes. That helps us out a lot. If you haven't done that already, please take a moment to do that. It really is a great benefit to us. I appreciate it. And of course, for always using the Amazon banner ad for all your holiday shopping needs. Doesn't cost you a cent extra. Just click through the banner ad on my site, richroll.com, and then buy whatever you're going to buy. And Amazon kicks us some loose commission change from their side of the equation. And that really helps us keep the bandwidth flowing and continue to do what we do here. So perhaps you know today's guest from one of her 25 roles on the big screen, appearing in movies like Titanic, Fandango, or The Usual Suspects. Or maybe you know her as the better half of the world's most successful film director, James Cameron, the incomparable, brilliant mind behind the biggest cinematic blockbusters of all time. Movies we've all seen like Aliens, Terminator, Titanic, and of course Avatar, the highest grossing movie of all time. But in addition to being a mom to 5 kids, Suzy Amis Cameron is also this incredibly passionate, pioneering environmental activist and philanthropist, as well as an innovative educator and founder, along with her sister Rebecca, of MUSE, which is an incredibly forward-thinking K-12 school focused on empowerment, individualized curriculum, creative and critical thinking, environmentalism, and global sustainability. In other words, it's this amazing institution devoted to preparing young people to live consciously within themselves, one another, and the planet, which is a pretty great vision, if you ask me. And I got a whole bunch more I want to say about Suzy in a minute before we get into the interview. But first, remember when that dude Gunnar Lovelace was on the podcast a while back? He's the guy who's CEO of ThriveMarket.com. He's a longtime friend of mine. It was a really great conversation. And I really love what him and his team are doing at Thrive, and I'm really proud to support that mission and have them as a sponsor of the show. In fact, I can't think of a better fit for what I do here, because if you're anything like me, you care about the food you put in your body. Unfortunately, good food can be extremely expensive. This is a huge problem. And it's a problem that Thrive Market isn't just tackling, but they're actually solving it. All right, so who are these guys? What do they do? How does it work? Well, Thrive Market is a socially conscious online marketplace that gives members access to thousands of organic and natural products, all at 25 to 50% off retail. They basically just cut out the middlemen and ship direct to you, direct to consumer. And I love that model. I love how it's disrupting the archaic food system that jacks prices up and makes so many of these healthy products really not available to everybody because it's out of your budget range. So through Thrive, you can easily filter everything by your preference: gluten-free, vegan, of course, raw, non-GMO, organic, even fair trade. They even have the best non-toxic household products, beauty, pet, and baby products on the market. Think of it like this. If Costco and Whole Foods had a love child, it would look a lot like Thrive Market. So here's how it works. You sign up for a membership. It's $59.95 annually. And as an aside, most members make that back in the first 2 to 3 shopping trips. In any event, then you can shop thousands of products offered, place an order, and receive that order right to your door. Orders larger than $49 receive free shipping if you're in the continental U.S. They're not yet doing international orders, but I'll update you when that changes because they're growing like crazy, and I'm sure it will. Beyond providing access to great products at 25 to 50% off retail, Thrive has 2 programs that really appeal to me. And the first is called the Thrive Gives program, whereby every paid membership is matched with a free membership for a low-income American family, a teacher, or a military family. And I love this aspect of the Thrive mission because low-income families are those that are most in need of better access to great food at discounted prices. And as Thrive Market grows, the reach for low-income families will grow too. The second applies to sustainability. Thrive Market is 100% carbon neutral through carbonfund.org. That means that all packaging, boxes, and inserts are made from recycled paper and are recyclable. And they're committed to supporting other sustainable businesses by working with eco-friendly vendors and suppliers who share their values. The bottom line, Thrive is truly changing the game because you never have to pay full price for healthy food again. And here's when it gets really exciting for you guys. Thrive is giving my listeners a special deal. One grand prize winner will walk away with a 1-year membership and $1,000 to spend at Thrive Market. That's amazing. And that's not all. 10 other runners-up will win a free 1-year membership too. To enter, go to thrivemarket.com/roll and don't miss your chance to win big. Again, thrivemarket.com/richroll for your chance to win a 1-year membership and $1,000 of healthy food from Thrive Market. Today's episode is also brought to you by my friends at the National Academy of Sports Medicine. The National Academy of Sports Medicine is looking for people who want an exciting career in the fitness industry where you wake up every day doing something you love. And who doesn't want that? NASM trainers are improving people's lives by helping them reach their health and fitness goals, and the demand for these trainers is huge right now. So imagine this. You wake up every day excited to get to work, not to a job, but to a rewarding career, getting paid to stay in shape while helping others reach their fitness goals. You set your own hours, you work in health clubs, sports clinics, and corporate wellness, and you're going to love who you work with. So why not do what you truly enjoy and get paid for it? There's no better time than now to get started on your certification with the National Academy of Sports Medicine. Plus, NASM guarantees you'll land a job as a personal trainer within 60 days of earning your CPT certification or your money back guaranteed. That's a pretty amazing guarantee. So go to myusatrainer.com for a free 14-day free trial of their fast and fun online program. That's myusatrainer.com, myusatrainer.com. Restrictions apply. Visit myusatrainer.com for additional details. I first met Suzy a couple years ago. We became pals. I actually didn't meet James until this past spring. That was an extraordinary experience. He had such nice things to say about my book, Finding Ultra, which was just a mind blower. I couldn't even believe that he actually read it, let alone had nice things to say to me about it. That's just crazy. But in any event, Suzy invited me to speak at MUSE last year. That's when I got sort of indoctrinated and introduced to what she's doing at this incredible institution. And now our 2 daughters, who have been historically homeschooled, unschooled, are now students at MUSE. And you might be familiar with this institution because it grabbed international headlines this past year when it became the first school in the U.S. to implement a 100% plant-based school lunch program, which is extraordinary. MUSE has been quite an amazing experience for our girls as well as for Julie and I. It's an amazing community, and it's really challenging outdated educational paradigms and modalities and stands as a groundbreaking model for a new way to foster what's best about the next generation, in my opinion. And I'm super impressed with Suzy. Of course, she lives in quite rare air, and most people of her stature, of her circumstances, would most likely choose a life of least resistance, of leisure, of luxury. But that is not Suzy. For the last 25 years, she has dedicated herself to environmental causes. Every breath she takes is in service to a better world, from leveraging her resources and influence to combat global climate change and our healthcare crisis, most recently through Food Choice Taskforce, which is an organization that she and James founded in 2014 that's focused on showing the impact of animal agriculture on climate change and the environment, to identifying and implementing better ways to educate the next generation. She is relentless. She is tireless. She is a true living example of advocacy in action. And this is a great conversation about her extraordinary life. It's a conversation about the intricate, intertwined relationship between our actions and the biosphere. It's about championing sustainable values, from what we do to what we wear, to how we teach our children, to the food we eat. And of course, it's about what it's like to be married to Hollywood's most successful director. It was an absolute pleasure to sit down with Suzy in her beautiful home in Malibu for this conversation. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope it helps you think more deeply and critically about our place in the world, about how you choose to spend your free time, and how our choices impact our personal health and the current and future health of the planet. So without further ado, pull up a seat in Suzy's office and enjoy. I'm surprised that you guys are not in Paris right now for COP21. Were you originally supposed to go?
We were supposed to go, actually, and the two events that I was going to be speaking at were both canceled.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the one that Jim was going to be doing was canceled as well. And then there was one that we were supposed to show up to together, and they basically just, made it smaller and smaller and smaller, and just kind of kept key people there.
Mm.
So
it didn't make sense anymore?
No, and we were planning on taking the children and making a whole trip out of it, and it just didn't feel like we could walk into Paris and be celebratory and have a fun time, and it's sad.
Yeah, it's really sad. It's tragic. We were just chatting before the podcast about how I'd been in Beirut, and left 2 days before the bombings there, and then Paris happens, and, it's tragic beyond measure and beyond explanation in words. And then to have the juxtaposition of that butting up against COP21 and the sort of promise that holds creates a weird kind of, I would think, sort of emotional dynamic for that event to take place, where they're grappling with such important issues, but there's also a city that's grieving and the world that's grieving over that.
Yeah, I think there's so many levels to it. Personally, I lived there for 3.5 years, so I'm devastated for the people, of France and Paris and all of that. And, we were really excited about going because we've created an organization called Food Choice Taskforce, and had all kinds of different presentations and speeches and connections that we wanted to make, because the connection between animal agriculture and climate change really isn't a big topic at COP right now, and we wanted to bring, shine light on that. The Chatham House study.
Yeah, there's a brand new study that just came out, right? So explain what that is.
That's right. So it's the first one came out about a year and a half ago, and that one was really the first piece of looking at the numbers of what are those greenhouse gases that are going out into the world that are created by animal agriculture. And this is something that people just aren't looking at. So if you think about what's causing climate change, the greenhouse gases that are going out there, the number one is fossil fuels, the energy sector. We know that. People know that. Number 3 is transportation. Mm-hmm. Transportation's huge. People think about it all the time. They go out, they get a Prius, they get an electric car, they try, to carpool and do all of those, ride a bicycle, all of those things. Number 2 is animal agriculture. Mm-hmm. And people just don't think about it. They don't connect the dots. And this was, Jim had actually known about it for a very long time, but just thought that, you needed to eat meat and have dairy for strong muscles and strong bones. And after we watched Forks Over Knives 3.5 years ago, which was a huge aha moment, he kind of realized, not only is meat and dairy not necessary to be healthy, but it's also not good for you. So we went cold turkey.
Right. Well, let's like park it there for a minute. We
Yeah.
can get back to the Chatham study and just get into this
Yeah,
story
sorry.
of like, no, it's okay. Look, we could talk all day.
I know,
You know what
I
mean?
know.
So
Exactly.
We'll try to structure it a
Exactly.
little bit. Yeah. So Jim, I'm going to call him Jim. Is that okay?
Yes,
All right.
I call him Jim.
We're pals, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You could call him Jim. I'm not sure if I can, but I'm going to anyway. Well known as a long-term environmentalist, going back many, many, many years. But the whole introduction of plant-based diet is, relatively recent on the landscape, but it's really changed and shaped kind of the focal point of your advocacy in many, many ways. So let's go back to that sort of moment of discovering Forks Over Knives and the impact that that's had on you and your marriage and your family and the work that you guys do.
Yeah, so 3.5 years ago, it was actually May 6th.
You remember the day.
I remember the
Wow.
day. It was so profound. My friend Elliot Washer of Big Picture Schools kept telling me about Forks Over Knives and how great it was, and I really needed to watch it. It sat here in this office for about 9 months, and I finally grabbed it on May 6th, and I took it down to the gym, and I plunked it in the DVD
It's like one
player.
of those movies you're like, yeah, I know I should watch it, but like,
Well, I didn't.
not today.
I didn't really know what it was going to tell me because he is not the typical, go plant-based and get born again kind of thing, which so many people get that way when they realize what a great lifestyle it gives you. But he told me about it, and when people tell me about a good book or a good DVD, I'm an info junkie, and I like to read it or see it. So anyway, I watched it, and I brought the DVD up to the house, and I found Jim, and I said, I need an hour and a half of your time tomorrow. And he said, oh, cool, where are we going? And I said, we're not going to go anywhere. I said, we're going to watch a movie. He said, oh, great, I love movies. What are we going to watch? I said, I'm not going to tell you what it is. I just want to sit and watch it and then talk about it afterwards. So we brought our 12-year-old girl in with us and our 13-year-old nephew. And we watched it. And my heart was pounding because I really wanted it to affect him the same way that it affected me. We both have cancer and heart disease in our families. And, we were getting to a point where doctors were starting to talk to us about our hearts and, being careful and all of those things. Meanwhile, we thought we were eating really healthy. Everything was organic, grass-fed, free range, blah, blah, blah.
Right. And this is 2007?
When was it? 12.
Oh, 2012. Okay.
Yeah, 3.5 years ago. Anyway, we watched it. He had just come home from a trip. I think he had been in China. And I couldn't tell if he was falling asleep during the movie. So I sat really close to him and kept moving around so he wouldn't fall asleep. But he wasn't falling asleep. And he was paying full attention to it because by the time we got from our TV room into the kitchen, he said, we shouldn't have any more animal products in this house ever. And within 24 hours, the whole pantry, refrigerator was cleaned out. And we also had goats up at our ranch. So we got fresh goat yogurt, goat cheese, and goat milk once a week. And within 48 hours, we closed down production of that. We kept the goats for a while as fire abatement. And plus they're cute and they're kind of pets. So, and we went cold turkey. That's how we roll. But I know,
Yeah, that's
I know
an amazing, like, sort of incredibly impactful. There's an immediacy to that I think is unusual for a lot of people. I mean, certainly, obviously, it profoundly impacted him, and you guys acted like in the moment. That's crazy. I mean, what did your kids? Were your kids like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, pretty much.
Are we getting any input on this?
Yeah, no.
That must have been a rough patch.
It was a little bit, but we were able to sort of generate delicious, yummy food right away. We discovered Veggie Grill, so that was kind of although our kids never ate fast food anyway. But there were a lot of really tasty choices with that, and we just figured out how to make yummy food pretty quickly because we're food oriented. Where the goats were kept up at our ranch, we actually completely planted that. So we grow about 90% of our own vegetables. So they really got into gardening and harvesting and cooking themselves, which really helped. And, again, we realize that that's not possible for everyone in the world. And it's not possible to go cold turkey. It's just some people need to ease into it more. It
is possible. It's just some people, I think it's important to give people permission to find their own way through it and to say it's cool to be transitioning and to, experiment and do all that kind of stuff. I'm kind of a cold turkey guy myself.
Yeah.
But even for me, it took a little bit of adjustment. It wasn't perfect or completely linear.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then how long did it take before kind of this messaging found its way into the advocacy work that you guys do together?
Well, both of us. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why we connected so much when we met 20 years ago was how involved we were in the environment, in environmental circles. And again, Jim knew so much about the connection between animal agriculture and climate change. But he didn't ever really talk about it because he really believed that you needed, animal protein and all of that. What ended up happening after that, and I do mark watching Forks Over Nile I really do mark Forks Over Knives as a moment of just the lifting of the veil and realizing how much our society is lied to every day. I grew up in Oklahoma and we raised cows and pigs and had our own milk and all of those things. And my mom is still saying, "You girls drink your milk. You want to have strong bones."
Well, of course. I mean, that's... we've all been told that our entire lives. It's beyond questioning.
Yeah. So it's, it feels yucky to be lied to and led down a road that's, for somebody else's bottom line, and it's really bad for you. So that marked that moment. And then once we went plant-based, Jim really started educating me and giving me books because we went crazy reading everything we could around whether it connected with health or the environment, but it just was like this cascade of just a marathon, uber marathon of reading and watching documentaries and getting our hands on everything that we possibly could. So that was kind of the moment.
What were some of the more impactful books and films?
Well, we happened upon a short little film that you can get on YouTube called Devour the Earth.
No, I haven't seen that.
You can just Google it. It's narrated by Paul McCartney, and it's about 18, 20 minutes long, and everything you need to know about animal agriculture and the climate and climate change is in that little short video. And it was actually 95.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. And it actually in the beginning, because they've updated it now, but in the beginning they kind of apologized for the quality of the film because it was made in 1995, but it's so relevant.
That's
today.
amazing, because I think wasn't the UN report that came out that kind of provides the basis for cowspiracy, that was 2008, right? I think.
Yeah,
if my
7 or
memory-
8,
something
the
like
long
that.
shadow.
Right. And
Yep.
that kind of, in mainstream culture, no one really paid attention. It was probably only people like Jim were people that were like reading that kind of stuff. It takes movies like Cowspiracy to introduce those concepts to the mainstream public. But, 2008, that still was, a couple of years before you guys watched Forks Over Knives.
Right.
And it's interesting that, James being such the ardent environmentalist, and yourself as well, that still you guys were holding on to the health component as the thing holding you back from kind of taking the complete leap, where for a lot of people, I think them seeing Cowspiracy was the final thing that they didn't know about.
Yeah. Well, the health piece was for Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Right. For me, I didn't even know about the environmental impacts at all, which was kind of my second marker in one of those moments that other people do know about this.
Mm-hmm.
But what was shocking to me was the environmental circles that I ran in, nobody was talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
No one.
Yeah,
and
and
when I did bring it up, I was pretty shut down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very interesting kind of thing to explore a little bit if you're comfortable doing it, because I would imagine you're rubbing elbows with and probably sitting on boards of, the sort of gold standard organizations out there. Like, I don't know which ones specifically, but the ones we all know about, whether it's Greenpeace, all these sort of organizations that kind of had their bell rung in Cowspiracy and aren't really talking about these issues. So even though there is the UN report and there's all this evidence out there, what do you think it is that is preventing these organizations from wanting to discuss this issue and flesh it out and really kind of advocate?
Yeah, it's one of those things where it becomes like an onion, and you just keep pulling back the layers. And I always say you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. And once you start down this path of finding out this information, and the more information you find out, the more you uncover, the more you find out, the more you uncover, and it's just mind-boggling. But I think when it first happened, and I went back to the organizations that I was working with and brought it up to them, and they realized that I've always been very passionate about food. Even MUSE School was founded on all organic snacks and lunches. It was organic dairy and grass-fed beef, all of those kinds of things. We have now since gone 100% plant-based, as you well know.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about that.
Good. But what ended up happening when I went back and I started talking about the fact that we were talking about dead zones in the oceans. We were talking about endangered species. We were talking about deforestation. We were talking about biodiversity loss. We were talking about creating sanctuaries in the oceans. What I realized was that there is a direct link to all of those things. If you put animal agriculture in the middle of that, create a Venn diagram, they all connect to deforestation, to dead zones, to biodiversity loss, the ice caps melting. So when you get that little ad in the mail to donate to save the polar bears, to save the wolves. Our daughter was that was her passion at school, was all about wolves, and she studied them for 4 years. When we found out why the wolves are really endangered, it's because they're getting killed by the cattle.
They're getting cleared out for cattle ranching.
That's right, for cattle ranching. So you can look at, I would say, 95% of all of the environmental issues out there, and you can trace them back to animal agriculture and the effect that animal agriculture creates, the havoc that it wreaks on these different environmental issues. So when I brought it up, I was definitely shut down. And actually sort of stepped back from supporting some of these organizations.
Mm-hmm. Were you given an explanation or just the brush off?
Well, I wrote a long letter and sent it, and the reply that came back was, we will get back with you with a formal reply, which never came. The really cool thing is that from that situation, Jim and I pulled together all of the usual suspects of the health sector. So we had the Campbells and the Esselsteins and Ornish and McDougall, and then we had environmentalists with us, Oppenlander, Jim Hicks, people from the Nature Conservancy and the Environmental Defense Fund. And we created a summit because clearly the health sector has it going on. They are pushing the message out there like crazy. There are a handful of people in the environmental world that are pushing it out there. But to get the two of them in the same place at the same time on the same page,
right,
that was our goal. And out of that came the Food Choice Taskforce. Out of the Food Choice Taskforce came a campaign called My Plate, My Planet, which was created when the U.S. Dietary Guidelines came out. And that was a really exciting moment. It's because it's unprecedented, and they really linked health and the environment. Under the U.S. Dietary Guidelines.
Right.
What will ultimately...
Which kicked up all this controversy. And,
Yay.
And the sort of, the response to that, the sort of meat and dairy industry response to that is sustainability arguments have no place in forming dietary guidelines, right? Exactly.
So then we created this campaign. We pulled out those pieces and called up all of the environmental NGOs, and the ones that we had a lot of issues with, they were the first ones to sign on.
Oh, it's great.
So they've done an about face. And what's really exciting is that I am now taking over as executive director of Food Choice Taskforce.
So I understand Food Choice Taskforce is a nonprofit, and is it funded by your main nonprofit, or how does it? And is it behind kind of getting these Chatham reports researched and published, or what is the relationship to these two Chatham reports to kind of bring it back to how we opened it up?
Yes, we do meander, don't we?
Yeah, I know. It's okay. I always bring it back
Just
around.
Get me going.
Yeah, it's good.
What ended up, actually, that was the other thing that came out of the summit that we created, was the fact that we didn't have that number of just what were the greenhouse gas emissions, because everything, from the Long Shadow, they published 18%. There were other published papers that came out that it was anything from 13% to 51%. And Jim and I were very well aware of the fact that, when people, if they're connected with Hollywood, if you go out and you really want to talk about something very serious, the good thing is to have science behind you. And so we actually, we approached Chatham House about doing a research project about the connection between animal agriculture and climate change. So that was the first part of the Chatham House study.
And what is Chatham House? Like, just explain who they are.
They are, I don't know if I can even do them justice. If you want the highest peer-reviewed research done, you go to Chatham House.
They're the guys.
They are the dudes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want your report to just be rock solid and unassailable, like they know how to get that done.
Exactly. Exactly. So they were really excited. No one had ever approached them about doing a research paper like this ever. And they'd been chomping at the bit to do it. So they did that. And then the second part of it, which was just published, is we did focus groups around the world. So I believe it's 5 different countries. And they went in with every different demographic that you can imagine. They went in and asked them all, what would make them change their diets? And before they asked them that question cold, and then they gave them the information about the environment. And the majority of them switched around and said, that they would do it for whether it was health, for the environment, for the future of their children.
Pure vanity.
Well, that's the funny thing.
The ultimate motivator?
Right.
Yeah.
So we went to China, or I shouldn't say they went to China, and they had focus groups in China, which is one of the most polluted places on the earth. And the women of China, hands down, said the reason why they would do it was because they wanted beautiful skin and slender bodies. Slender, healthy bodies, I should say. And, that is the beauty of a plant-based diet. It doesn't matter if you're doing it for the cute, fluffy animals or for the environment or for your health or, to have beautiful skin and a nice, slim, healthy body.
It checks every box.
It does. It's like win, 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 win. And it, you end up even saving money because it's not as expensive, first of all, to even, purchase everything and prepare it. But you end up not going to the doctor as much. I mean, Jim and I have been completely healthy for 3.5 years. No fevers, no flus, no, he used to get 2 to 3 colds a year and the flu. Nothing, nada.
Right. And he lost a bunch of weight, too.
He lost probably 35 pounds. Yeah. And he just turned 61, and he runs 5 miles on the beach barefoot. He's lifting more weight than he's ever lifted in his whole life. He does, he works out 7 days a week. He does yoga 3 times a week, and then he works out with weights 4 times a week. I mean, he's unstoppable. I literally have watched him get younger.
That's crazy,
Yeah.
especially, with the sort of little empire that you guys are running. Like, I can't imagine the sort of daily pressures and all the various responsibilities that you guys have to live up to every single day here. It's quite the operation. So you need that childlike level of enthusiasm and energy, right?
Yeah.
Humming at a high level.
Yeah. It's intense. I mean, it's something. I'm glad you said that, because it's something that that I really like to put out there, because we do have an amazing, unusual life, and Jim grew up in a tiny little town in Canada. I grew up in Oklahoma, and what we do realize is that there are things that we have available to us that a lot of people don't. And we have a platform that we're able to use in a way. I mean, we could be taking selfies and eating chocolate bonbons and reading movie magazines, I suppose, if we really wanted to. But we take our platform and our place in society very, very seriously. And I think that's, one of the reasons why we did have that big conversation about starting Food Choice Taskforce, because we really want to do something to make the world a better place for our children to grow up in. Not only our children, but the children of the world.
Right. Well, yeah, you live in rare air, and you have this, very sort of privileged existence, and perhaps that could mean for some people, well, I can't relate to them or whatever. But knowing you guys a little bit, like, you're incredibly grounded people, and you could be doing anything. Like, you have choices that most people don't have. But the fact that you have decided to really invest in this commitment and make it your life's mission, beyond the creative projects and even perhaps beyond the school, to get this message out there, I think speaks volumes to your character, because you could be sitting on a beach somewhere doing nothing, I suppose, right? And yet you're working, tirelessly to advance this, this idea of trying to save our planet's precious resources and preserve our bounty for future generations. And I can't think of anything more aspirational or laudatory than that. So, nothing but mad respect
Thank
for
you.
that. And maybe that's a good place to kind of, there's two things I want to talk about MUSE School, but before we get into that, maybe this is a good place to kind of talk about how, what your thoughts are in terms of taking, this knowledge base that you have and this understanding that you have about the environment and the perilous situation that we're in, and the kind of benefits of a plant-based diet, and how we communicate, how we message this to mainstream audiences, to, people that aren't so fortunate, or people that are just trying to pay the bills and get through the day. Like how can we sort of penetrate the consciousness of the average American to get these ideas across and create solutions that make it easier and more facile and more attractive for them to kind of take this leap that has had such a tremendous impact on your life?
That's the big question,
isn't it? Right?
Yeah, it is.
Because ultimately, this can't be, this is not an elitist ideal, but it can be interpreted as such. And sometimes when you're having high-level conversations with people that aren't necessarily average Americans, it can be perceived as, well, this is just something that, people that I can't relate to talk about. But it has to be something for everybody, right? So how do we accomplish this?
Right.
I'm not saying that you have to have the solution, but this is what we need to be focusing on, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is what I spend every moment of my day, from the moment I wake up in the morning. And I wake up a lot with a pit in my stomach of what else? What else can I do? And, what is that magic bullet that will wake people up in a way that, to make them understand, what the connection is, and they'll feel so much better, and it'll help the environment, and, all of the different things that a plant-based diet does for you. I will start with a story.
Okay.
About 2 weeks after Jim and I went plant-based, we were up at our ranch, and he's kind of a doomsday kind of guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you watch his movies, and, he's, he really is always worried endlessly about the future of our world, and spoke about it regularly, and yet always trying to look for solutions. I mean, looking at renewable energies, at, anything that would make a difference in our environment, looking for, different kinds of fuels, and, I mean, experimenting and creating things, as we know he knows how to do. And we were walking on the beach, and he said to me, for the first time in my life, I have hope. And if there's a way for us to get the message out to the world about how important it is to change what's on our plate, we have hope. Mm-hmm. Because we can make all of the changes in the energy sector. We can make all of the changes in the transportation sector. It'll take a long time, much longer than we have. But if we don't change what's on our plate, along with those other two things, we will never meet our 2-degree target. Mm-hmm. He said, so I actually have...
The 2-degree target meaning temperature change.
Correct. Yeah. So he said, for the first time, I really have hope, because changing what's on your plate isn't going to take 20 years. You don't have to buy a Prius. You don't have to change your light bulbs even. You just change what's on your plate. And every single person has the power to do that themselves. And it's always a question after we give a speech. What can I do? What can one little person do to make a difference? Well, you can look at what's on your plate. So it takes us back to the Chatham House study. And that's why we did the second half of it with the focus groups, to find out what would make them change. And we're currently working on, marketing and marketing research, and looking at, what are the different campaigns that will speak to the different demographics. Whether it's, I personally will go very strongly after moms and women, because they make 85% of the decisions, the purchasing decisions in the household.
Right. And if you educate a young woman, then ultimately you're educating an entire family down the line.
Correct.
And the ripple effect of that is tremendous.
Yeah, it is. It is. So yeah, your question, how do you go into one of these tiny little towns and make a difference when they're they don't have the education, they're steeped in their traditions and those kinds of things. The irony is that, even back to Egyptian times, the poor people were eating plants. It was only the affluent that were eating animal products. And because of the way the world has gone, everyone wants that status of being able to eat meat. I had a good friend, a Chinese woman, a very good friend, and she grew up in very, very poor, and then she ended up to be, a very, very affluent woman. And she said, all I could think about when I was young and eating plants is that I was going to grow up and I was going to be rich and I was going to eat meat.
Right.
And now I'm vegan.
That's so funny. Yeah, I mean, it's a real problem in the developing world, where you're seeing like the ascension of a middle class in China, and people finally having, enough money to rub together to buy the foods that they didn't grow up with.
Right.
And that's, with the way that we export our diet and lifestyle overseas, is creating all kinds of calamities for the first time in human history. And I've seen it in the Middle East, and I know it's, a gigantic problem in China. So when we talk about shifting these habits, we tend to focus on the United States and our healthcare crisis here and school lunch and all these sorts of things. But, it really is a global problem. But back to your point of communicating to the average person, it's an interesting dynamic, because on the one hand, it's incredibly empowering, and we're a populace of people that feel very disempowered. We feel like our vote doesn't count. What can we do? There's nothing we can do to make a difference, and it's easy to be lazy. And yet here is this one thing that you can do that has this massive impact, this incredible ripple effect, and that creates self-esteem. It makes you feel good about yourself. It's like a beautiful thing, but it really is a grassroots campaign of one person at a time, or one town hall, to get that across over time.
Right. Yeah. So we're really looking at every different angle we can possibly hit, whether it's, from the ground up or from the top down, because we've got, policymakers that are very much on board with us as well, being able to help move the needle that way. But it's true. You can move the needle all by yourself.
Right.
So, the funny thing is that some people do think that it's elitist to be plant-based and all of that, which is it is so ironic. However, I think the more role models that are out there and talking about being plant-based, I mean, in a funny way, it's probably going to switch completely 180, where people are going to start to look at some people of affluence that have gone plant-based, or celebrities, or whoever they are, because there are lots and lots of celebrities, and more every single day, that are going plant-based because they realize it gives them an edge. They look better, they've got more energy, And, and athletes, obviously. I mean, you speak to that all the time. I mean, athletes absolutely, plant-based athletes have an edge over animal-based athletes. I guess that's how you'd say it.
Animal-based athletes. Yeah, we're still getting over that hump. There's a lot of work to do to really get people to embrace that idea. But
right.
I'm working on it.
But I mean, I do have entry with the educational sectors, and I think that that's a big thing. And with women, it is the women that are in the carpool circles, they're in the knitting circles, they're in the yoga circles, they're in the grocery circles, and being able to really tap into that is huge. And you spoke earlier about the younger crowd. It's amazing how many, certainly with the study that we did, how many of the younger crowd, that sort of the 25s and unders, they really are concerned about the environment.
And they're super open to plant-based diet. They don't have that like built-in resistance because they didn't grow up with the same sort of messaging that we did. And I find them to be incredibly receptive. And I think the environmental message really speaks to younger people. It's difficult to penetrate them with the health message because when you're young, like, who cares?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But they really do care about the environment. And that messaging really seems to resonate profoundly with them. And that makes me optimistic and hopeful in the face of crazy statistics that would make you pessimistic when I meet young people and I see how excited they are about it. And then they go and they message their friends and all of that. Like, it's a cool thing that's happening. So it's this kind of bifurcated approach where you're doing the one-on-one, individual to individual, but at the same time, there's giant policy changes that have to shift with, how we, for example, like farm subsidies and, how school lunch works and all the gigantic conglomerate business interests that come into play that kind of create loggerheads with implementing change at a high level going down. Right.
Well, I think we're ripe for this conversation. On the tails of the U.S. dietary guidelines and the World Health Organization announcement that came out. I mean, I know that there's been certainly the backlash with that, but you can completely look at it in a way of the way the smoking campaigns went. The smoking campaigns and the anti-smoking campaigns, and all you have to do is take smoking out and put meat and dairy in.
Yeah, they're using the exact same playbook.
Exactly.
So hopefully, because of, the astuteness of the American public, having sort of weathered that in the past, we'll be able to accelerate how long it took for, because I think the whole smoking thing went on for it took 50 years or something like that for that to get sorted out. So hopefully we can expedite that time window.
Yeah, well, I think things do get accelerated now and people get found out easier. It's... If you're looking at the difference between the way it's basically just the way information is shared around the world now.
Well, the immediacy of it is unprecedented. I mean,
exactly.
And I think the fact that we all have something that we hold in our hands that can answer any question that we have is I don't know that we fully appreciate, how insanely amazing that is.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that accelerates the whole process. And I think, just the fact that a young person can look something up and immediately get the answer to anything that spikes their curiosity is really, beyond comprehend. I mean, can you imagine being 12 and having something like that? I mean, I can't even fathom it. But at the same time, I think what gets built into that is a growing demand for transparency on all fronts, from the businesses that we patronize to the governments and the elected officials, everything. And when young people see a lack of transparency, alarm bells go off. Whereas when we were younger, it's like, well, there's 3 channels and you get your news at night, and there was no really ability to question anything in a way that would be facile without going into the basement of some library and getting microfiche out and writing a term paper that no one's going to read. You know what I mean? Now,
Right.
like the way that information can get spread, there's a lack of tolerance for kind of hiding the ball, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that bodes well for things getting sorted out in a positive way.
Yeah, I think so, because it ultimately is about the fact, when we were growing up, it was just like, okay, that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we're supposed to eat because that's what they tell us on the commercials, and
Right.
That's what's going to make us healthy and strong. And I think kids do question much, much more. And in terms of, I think ultimately what's going to happen too is it's about supply and demand. Jim and I also had another conversation last night about pets and pet food.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're like curious, like, so what is the footprint of feeding your
Right.
animals? It's like a whole nother, that's a whole nother conversation. But being able to, cut down on supply and demand. I mean, I know that just since we've gone plant-based and how many DVDs and books that we've given out to people, and then we hear back from so many of them, and they're like, I bought 20 of those DVDs and I gave them out to my friends. So it absolutely is a ripple effect.
Yeah.
I think one of the main things that's really important when you are doing that is it's really difficult to do all by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you are in a place where you're all by yourself and everybody's looking at you like you've got 20 eyeballs, then, find a community online, so
Right.
you can have a support system, trade recipes, talk about all the exciting things that happen to you when you go plant-based.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can find that community. I mean, ideally, you want community around you in person, but the fact that the internet avails you of any kind of community that you're searching for, and certainly robust communities in this plant-based movement everywhere you look. So it's cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about MUSE.
Okay.
When did you come up with this crazy idea that you wanted to start a school?
Oh, gosh.
And how insane was that idea?
Well,
Looking back.
I didn't realize what I was getting
Yeah.
myself into. November of 2005,
Uh-huh.
Jim and I were having a conversation. Jim and I have 5 kids, and the 2 older ones had already gone through different schooling systems, and it was challenging to watch them go through it. As a mother, and watching their spirits get squashed, and watching the educational institutions try to put them in a box. And so then Jim and I had 3 children of our own, and when it came time for the oldest of those 3 to start kindergarten, I started looking around at different schools. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to find a school that would, number one, ultimately feed them well, allow them to work in their own way, at their own pace, teach them about the environment, and basically celebrate them who they were as individuals.
Mm-hmm. And what'd you come up with?
Nada.
I was like, good luck with that.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything. And so I talked to Jim about homeschooling. And we were having this big conversation. It was interesting because he was talking about whether or not he should continue with deep sea exploration, or he should go off and make this, big studio film called Avatar. Mm-hmm. And I was over here struggling with, do we homeschool? And that felt isolating for especially the daughter that we were talking about homeschooling. Or do we get maybe a group of the preschool kids together and start a little kindergarten? We could do it here in this building that we're in right now. We talked about this being our first school building. Anyway, we kind of both went off and in our different directions. He ended up obviously making Avatar, and I ended up calling my sister, Rebecca Amos, who's got a master's in early childhood development, and begged and pleaded with her to help me start this school.
But what was the idea? You were just going to get some sort of friends or a couple families and kind of do an informal thing at your house.
Yes, exactly. It was just going to be this little thing, and we were all going to, sit around and, sing Kumbaya and all get along and create this cute little school.
Right. And I would imagine, Jim being kind of an iconoclast and a, sort of a maverick thinker, I would think that he would embrace the idea of, a different kind of education or be open to that idea. I mean, what were his thoughts on it originally?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, both of us, he went to a year and a half of college. I didn't ever go to college. Our schooling, he had a pretty good education out of Canada. But really we're very, very self-taught, and that's just kind of how we've rolled in the world. But he was completely open to it. He's incredibly supportive of, any crazy ideas I might have. And that's probably, the magic that we have between us, because we both have each other's back on that front.
It's important.
It is. It is. So one thing in terms of MUSE, one thing led to another, and we ended up finding a facility right here in Malibu. It's actually my friend David Bryan, who used to be the head of New Roads, and our two older kids were at New Roads at this point, which is a great school. And they had taken over this property, and they could only fill up half of it, and there was this cute little building with a kitchen. So we leased it for 2 years.
That space off on Las Flores, right?
Exactly.
Off PCH. Yeah, I remember
exactly.
That. I remember it must have been maybe a year after you started the school, being down in Malibu at Cross Creek, and there was like an environmental fair, like a Green Day or something like that. There was all these booths and vendors. It looked like just kind of a large farmer's market, but it was a bunch of green businesses. And it was either you or your sister, I don't remember, but it was just a little desk and a chair, and you had a little sign that said MUSE, and you were just sitting there by yourself wanting to talk to anybody who would talk to you about your school. And I was like, wow, I didn't see too many people coming to talk to you, and I was like, I wonder how that's going.
Yeah.
I mean, this was many years ago. It must have been right at the beginning.
It was. It probably was in our first year.
Yeah.
And it was me sitting at that little
you.
table. Yes. And I would talk to anybody who would listen.
I think Julie and I came by and said hi and talked to you for a minute.
Yeah.
But I don't know why, but I vividly remember that.
No,
I remember thinking, it's got to be really hard to start a school.
And I really had no idea. But we started with 11 children, and in this little one-room schoolhouse, basically, and had a garden. I mean, all of the things that we're doing now, it was just tiny.
Right.
And now we start at 2 years old, so we have an amazing early childhood program, and we go all the way through high school. And we have, I think close to 180 children
180,
now.
Yeah.
2 campuses. And we are working diligently on MUSE Global to open schools around the world.
Oh, this is news to me.
Yeah.
I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know. It's really cool. It's really cool. And we're keeping within the Greek mythology of the 9 muses. So our first rollout will probably be, 9 clusters of 9. So 81 schools around the world. And we have an unbelievable amount of interest. In fact, might be going to Dubai in a couple of days to meet with the people over there. But in Europe, France, China, India, so many different places. And what's exciting to me about that is that you're not only educating the children, but what ends up happening is the children take this information home. They want to know, why can't we, even if we don't have a garden, can we set up a window box in the kitchen and grow some vegetables, and, we can compost too, and, it would be good to eat plant-based, and here are all the reasons why. So it will give us a platform and an ability to be able to spread the message through education, through the children, to the mommies, to the families, infiltrate as much as we can around the world. So that's another avenue of bringing the plant-based information out into the world.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful thing to have sort of been watching this thing flourish over the years. And, now, as you know, my 2 daughters are attending MUSE.
Yay.
I know. They're loving it, by the way. It's been really an amazing experience. And I think to bring it back to those kind of 3 ideals that formed the premise upon which you wanted to, create a new way of educating, this idea of, sort of fostering self-esteem, good nutrition, and allowing kids to kind of work at their own pace. I mean, that's really been my daughter's experience, right? Like it's small enough that every child has kind of their own course set by their teacher in terms of what they want to explore and how they're going to explore it, that is premised upon, them being passionate about something and then using that as a focal point to bring an educational opportunity to surround that in all the disciplines. Is that fair to say?
It is, absolutely. I mean, it's what excites me mostly about it is that every child that comes into the school, we ask them what they love, not their parents. We ask the child. And when their little eyes start to twinkle and they get all fidgety and excited about something that they want to do, and then we build the academics into that, what happens is kids that don't like to read, kids that hate math, kids that, say they hate science, all of a sudden these children are working 2, 3, and sometimes 4 grade levels ahead of the state and national standards because they love what they're doing. I mean, we've had kids cry because they can't go to school on Saturdays or because there's Christmas break or because we're letting out for the summertime. I mean, it's amazing.
It is amazing. And it seems so commonsensical, like, of course, like if you get them excited about what they're doing, then they'll be self-propelled.
Right.
But our whole system is kind of set up in opposition to that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so it takes a crazy maverick like you to spearhead this thing, and it's been beautiful to see it grow. And we've had our own journey with this. It was very similar to your own. With our older boys had kind of gone through more traditional schooling, and we were able to kind of see the negatives and the positives built into that. But with respect to our daughters, Julie specifically, because she was really leading the charge with this, she was feeling the same way that you were feeling. And we had gatherings at our house with friends, and we were going to try to do our own thing at our house and never could really get it off the ground. And meanwhile, like, you're on this track, over here doing what you're doing. And then when you moved into the campus that's literally like, right around the corner from our house, and we went and checked it out, I was like, why are we trying to recreate something that already exists that's over here that we can step right into? And I'm so glad that we have. It's really been very empowering for our girls, and it's been a privilege to kind of be part of that community. And I think community really is what is really of the utmost importance in the kind of tone that you've set over there. There's so many gatherings for the parents to be involved in, and you have your MUSE talks where you bring in these amazing people that get to speak. And
you were one of them.
I was the pilot case. Now you're on to the fancy people. But there is a real sense of family over there that I hope you can hold on to as you continue to grow. And the campus is, basically you took over this old, like, sort of defunct summer camp, right? And all the classrooms are cabins, and they're all like their own, unique art pieces. And we were there, what was it? Was it last spring when you had the kind of ceremony to introduce and unveil the solar panels? What are they called? The solar
sunflowers.
Flowers. Yeah, so how many of them? Are there 5 of them?
There are 5 of them.
Right. So explain what these are.
So this was a birthday present that Jim gave to me for my 50th birthday. And, most girls probably like to get jewelry and maybe a week at the spa or something like that. That's not who I am. He had me in absolute tears when he gave me a presentation of it was it was 4 pictures of the campus, and photoshopped in were these solar flowers. And they stand about 25 feet tall, and they're 28 feet in diameter. And they track the sun just like a real flower does, and generate about 90% of all of the energy for the campus. Mm-hmm. And we have dashboard. Is that what they call it?
I don't know.
It's I think
control panel.
Well, it's on the iPad.
I
don't know. It's the kids have them. You know, it's
interface.
An interface. We'll call it an interface. And so the children can actually track the input, the solar input, mm-hmm. and how much output they're creating. So all of a sudden the kids are, if you don't shut the door when you're supposed to shut the door, or keep it open when you're supposed to keep it open, or turn off the lights or turn them on, or, those kinds of things. So they're highly aware of energy usage at this point.
Mm-hmm. And the panels are fueling about 90% of the energy use of the school. Is that about right?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, they're amazing. They're unique works of art, and the solar panels sort of are a circular array that form the kind of sunflower pattern, and they're massive. They're huge. Yeah. And what was really cool at the unveiling, when James was talking about it, he was talking about how he came up with the design and then compiled a team of engineers to kind of, further conceptualize and construct these things. And there was a moment where he realized, like, this could be a business, like this is a really viable, cool thing. And they could have sort of, protected the intellectual property for their own purposes, but instead there was a decision to just make it open source, so anybody could take this design, copy it, and use it.
That's right.
Which is really very cool.
Yeah.
So are people doing it?
Actually, there are a couple science centers and parks, mm-hmm. And those types of people who are calling and asking for the information, and so it's really cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah,
it was a great birthday gift.
Oh my gosh, it's he comes up with he's a cool guy.
All right.
But the other really special thing about that campus is that, we're a dye-free, toxic-free, pesticide-free zone. And all of everything, because it was a 50-year-old camp, mm-hmm. and we basically gutted the whole thing and tore some of the buildings down. So all of the rims around the windows and the baseboards and chairs, tables, all kinds of things that's reclaimed wood from buildings that we took down.
So, everything that got used for the sort of repairs and reformation of the campus was using materials that were already like on site, right? Or reclaimed, or at least recycled. Yeah,
most of them were. Uh-huh. Most of them were. And then we did, we were able to do some swaps with, for instance, our carpeting or our rugs was an environmental company, and we were able to give them our old rugs, mm-hmm. and they recycled them, because that's what they do. They recycle and churn them out. So, there are no fire retardants in any of the fabrics, couches, rugs, uh-huh. Nothing off gases, everything zero VOC, and it's we don't use any pesticides for any of rodent control. We actually have a falconer.
Yeah, the falconer.
A falconer who flies.
There's actually a falconer on campus. It's a guy walking around with a falcon on his hand, with the little cap on the falcon. The falcon keeps the predators away from the garden.
Yep, and it works beautifully.
So on this sort of theme of sustainability, that obviously dovetails nicely into the diet. You guys have a garden there. All the kids are learning how to grow food, and a percentage of that food makes its way into the kitchen. That finds its way onto the plates for the kids.
90% of the produce that's grown there goes into the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And we have 120 raised beds. In the upper school, they actually grow a surplus of produce, and they take it to local restaurants around the corner.
Right.
And
by bicycle.
By bicycle.
Of course.
So that they, yeah, exactly. So that there's, no carbon footprint. And, these kids are really passionate about that. So they've created their curriculum around that. They created a business plan. They went to the restaurants themselves and, made the deal with them, and they grow them. They know what their inputs are and their outputs are and their yields are. And it's
really
impressive.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you know Stephen Ritz, who's an educator in the Bronx?
No.
I had him on my podcast. You got to meet this guy. He's got to come out and be a MUSE speaker. I'll give you his information.
Okay.
But he basically has transformed the landscape of the Bronx by teaching young kids how to grow food. And it started with tower gardens in his classroom, and then it kind of morphed out into vacant lots across the Bronx, and literally taking, large amounts of underprivileged kids who, have a lot of problems at home and socioeconomically and et cetera, and really getting them to invest in this process of growing food and learning about food and really transforming their lives and the community itself. And he's an incredibly passionate, energetic speaker. He's done a couple of amazing TED Talks, but he'd be a guy who would be great to come to MUSE and talk to the kids.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll try to
Sounds
connect
awesome.
you guys. Yeah, he's cool. But the thing that really grabbed headlines across the world is when you guys made this decision that your school lunch was going to be 100% plant-based starting this year.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was the thing. Like, of all the stuff that you're doing, all of which we've kind of gone through, all these amazing things, that was the thing that seemed to be the thing that everyone has grabbed onto and, sort of put the school on the map in a global sense in terms of awareness. Mm-hmm. So what went into that decision, and what was it like kind of making that announcement to the parents and kind of seeing what happened as a result of that?
It's multidimensional.
Yes, I would imagine that was tricky.
Yeah. Well, we realized after, Jim and I both gave quite a few different speeches, and we were out there talking about being an environmentalist and realizing that you kind of can't be a full-on, full-fledged, walk-in-the-walk environmentalist if you're still eating animals. So here I was, founder of this environmental school and still serving animal products. Mm-hmm. And so a couple times a year we get together with the core group and, talk about, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plans and what are we going to do in the future. And I dropped the bomb that I thought we should go plant-based. Well, Elliot was there, mm-hmm. the guy who gave me forks over knives, and he was like, yeah, that's a great idea. And everybody else kind of went, no, we can't do that. And ultimately, it was out of fear that people wouldn't go for it. Mm-hmm. We did come to a decision, and we did decide to do it. What we did, though, was we decided to take a full year and a half and educate our community. Because, like we talked about earlier, some people can go cold turkey, and some people really need to go hold their hand and walk them through it. And there's a lot of fear behind it because people think that you will fall over and die
if one meal out of 3 of the day.
Well, yeah. But I mean, people really are nervous that if you don't eat flesh 3 times a day, that you're just going to shrivel up and die, and it's like, well, what about the protein? Well, you can ask any doctor in America, have they ever treated a protein deficiency? I think I heard you mm-hmm. say this.
Did I say that?
I think I
probably
think
heard
it
it somewhere
was
else too, but yeah.
No
doctor that I know of has ever treated a patient with a protein deficiency.
No, exactly. But boy, have they treated a lot of things created by protein, like cancers and heart disease and diabetes and, all those kinds of lovely things. So we made the announcement, and we probably lost about 40 to 50 families
Uh-huh.
when we decided we were
when
going
you're
to go
small, that's a
plant-based.
lot.
Yeah,
That's a heavy
it was
hit.
kind of scary, actually. What ended up happening, though, is we created a food committee, and we brought families into that, and we really talked about, what was the best way to educate the community and let them know that, not only were their children going to, not fall over and shrivel up and die, but that they would, it would really help them on so many levels. But they were very worried. They were worried about the brain development and essential fatty acids and, all of those things. We brought Neil Barnard in to write a lot of information for us to hand out, and Dr. Dean Ornish, and just to really, again, to get the science behind us and to get the facts behind us, that what we were doing was, very, very healthy, not only for the environment, but for the children and their developmental growth. And, from that, we were able to kick off a campaign, which is 1 meal a day for the planet, OMD, which I gave you the book earlier.
Book here. It's really cool book.
But to really let them know, if they really had a problem with it, that it was 1 meal a day. 1 meal a day and 1 snack a day. And so now we have our sustainability pledge. So you can do 1 meal a day for the planet, which saves, and I don't have those stats in front of me, but it saves an enormous amount of water.
45 pounds of grain, 1,000 gallons of water. I can't remember a certain percentage of CO2 emissions and animals' life.
Exactly.
I have that,
The children can probably spout this
probably know
faster
better.
than I can.
Yeah.
Right. So we do 1 meal a day for the planet, 2 meals a day for the planet, or all in. And we were amazed at how many people, checked the box all in. And we've had an influx of families come to the school because we're plant-based. We had a woman, she moved all the way from Missouri to bring her children to MUSE because it's plant-based. So it's really pulled in a whole nother community, and the children love the food is amazing. Kayla is an amazing chef.
I've eaten lunch there before. Oh my God, they get to eat this for lunch every day. It's extraordinary. You know, it's really such a privilege and a gift. And I feel like that's an important, kind of the lesson baked into that is this idea of being, true to who you are, right? Like you can't just be half of what you say you are. And when you have to kind of bring everything into alignment, it's a scary thing, and you lose people initially. But those are the people that probably, weren't best served by what you're doing anyway. And ultimately, you're going to, attract the people that you want to have part of that community, and it will grow from there.
Yeah, and we've had so many schools around the nation reach out to us. And I actually have to say in a couple different countries as well, but reach out to us to say, how did you do that? And, can you help us? Can you give us recipes? Can you help us look at ways to, make our school plant-based as well? Yeah,
that's really important, because that was kind of the next line of kind of conversation I want to get into is that, look, not everybody can go to MUSE. This is not accessible, but it kind of exists as this model, right? And so how can we take these principles that seem to be functioning well and either scale it like you're intending with the MUSE Global, or find other ways to have it modeled in currently existing institutions so that more kids can get exposed to these ideas that seem to be working with the kids. Yeah. I think it's, the opportune moment. I think a lot of, certainly, in coastal cities, San Francisco, LA, West Coast, East Coast kind of thing, people are looking at this more in schools. The vegetarian schools are in New York City, and the only reason that they're not completely vegan is because it's mandatory to serve milk. Yeah. And I think PS 244. Yeah. And those people, I actually met them in New York. They're fantastic. I went to the school too. The Coalition for Healthy Schools, Amy Hamlin. That's right. Is the woman behind that. Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, and putting greenhouses. Cecil Robards in New York City. I mean, she was the first one to get a greenhouse put on a school there, and I think they're over 30 now, in different schools. And what Kimball Musk has done with putting gardens in schools, and Kelly Meyer, and so there are so many people that are doing that. And I even talked to my nieces and nephews in Oklahoma, and they're starting to shift. And when you see that, when you realize that people in like the middle of America are starting to shift their ideas around gardening and around food, it's exciting.
It is exciting, but it's also kind of weirdly and ironically like full circle, because you're saying middle America, but that's the breadbasket. That's where farming and gardening kind of, began in America,
Exactly.
right? So it's like now you're introducing this maverick concept of gardening or learning how to grow your own food. Well, those are the people that were originally doing it.
Well, the only thing that they really grow down there now is
cattle
corn and soy to
right.
feed the cows.
Right.
Exactly.
And this is the bigger problem that we have to face, of
That's
course.
right. Exactly.
What is the experience of kind of watching a child go from that place of being totally disconnected from food and where food comes from, and then learning how to, not only plant a seed, but take care of that seed, foster it, fertilize it, and then ultimately, pull it out of the garden and bring it into the kitchen and then eat it? Like, is there a way to encapsulate the impact of that on the child and what it's like to kind of see that educational experience taking place?
It's a beautiful moment when the child arrives at MUSE and the parents say, "My children doesn't eat anything that's green. So I'm really worried they're going to starve at lunchtime." And usually it's about a month to 2 months in, and the children are doing exactly that. They're planting the seed, they're working with, our gardening experts, and they're harvesting. They're eating the vegetables right out of the garden, directly from the plant to their mouths. And before you know it, they're sitting around a table with all of their peers and eating green beans with flaxseed oil on them, and their parents are dumbfounded and can't understand how in the world that could possibly happen. But it also, it comes back to that support thing. So, if you've got 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and their friends are trying it, like, yeah, it's really good, try it. They will, because, it's that peer pressure thing in a super positive way.
Well, then the education starts to work in the reverse, because then the kid goes home and starts, educating the parents.
Exactly. Why don't we have green beans at home?
Which is an amazing thing.
No, I don't like the ones in the can. I want the ones that grow in the dirt.
Right. Yeah. Incredible. I mean, it's hard to really estimate the impact of that. I mean, really the fundamental kind of core principle of sustainability, existing as a centerpiece of this school, is really worked into the fiber of everything that you're doing. And that's like becomes second nature for young people, it becomes part of who they are and their character. What does that mean, 10 years, 20 years down the line, and whatever they end up doing with their lives? Global champions. There you go.
That's what we like to grow at MUSE.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing.
No, because as adults, we recycle, we drive our Priuses, we, try to change our light bulbs. We try to do all these things, and we dislocate our shoulders patting ourselves on the back for doing that and calling ourselves environmentalists. You start at a very young age, and it's true. It just becomes second nature to them, and they don't know anything that's different. That's just what you do.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. I want to kind of step into a day in the life of Suzy and James Cameron. And I would imagine that there is no typical day, but what is it sort of like to, be in this world that you're in, where you guys are juggling so many different things? And how do you make your marriage function properly in that context?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question.
I was going to say, sorry, that's a loaded one. We can parse it out.
No, I don't think anybody's. I mean, people have asked me, pieces of it, but I've never actually done a day in the life of. Well, again, we have a gaggle of kids, so it's like, he's a daddy, I'm a mommy. We get up, we get the kids up. It's time to make breakfast. It's got,
right.
Where's my blue shirt? I can't find my blue shirt. I've got to find it. No, I don't really want a burrito for breakfast. I want, the typical things. I think just that piece alone, the feeding the animals and feeding the children and feeding everybody, and that's pretty typical. I think of any family,
right? Well, there's
waking up in the morning.
Yeah, there's nothing like kids to pull you out of yourself and force you to really understand what's most important.
Yeah.
But at the same time, kind of butting up against that, you have all of these environmental concerns. You're trying to run a school. Jim is in the process of trying to make Avatar 2, and any one of those, you could just lose yourself completely and become sort of obsessed with whatever project that you're in. But you're kind of juggling all of these things, any one of which would be plenty for anybody.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that, still find time for your relationship and just kind of enjoying your life?
I think it's, again, it's support. Jim and I are really both of our families are intact. We're just, we came from really grounded places, I guess. Mm-hmm. And we want to provide that for our children. And Jim and I just support each other 550% no matter what. We always like to use the flying metaphor. When you're flying an airplane and you want to know, you want somebody to look out their right window off of the right wing and see another aircraft over there, you might say it's on your 3 o'clock. Mm-hmm. Or if it's behind you, it's on your 6 o'clock, or if it's on to the left of you, it's on your 9 o'clock, or it's, at 12 o'clock. And so we always say, I got
your 6, or I got your 3.
Yeah, all of those things, because sometimes he's leading and I'm following. Sometimes we're side by side, and sometimes I'm leading, he's following.
Right.
So I think that piece in and of itself is really, really important. And we both allow each other, I shouldn't say allow, we both support each other in going out and living our passions with whatever that is. I'm currently writing books and, doing Food Choice Taskforce and the school and coming up with all kinds of, fun, crazy other things. He is, in fact, writing Avatar 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
Yes. And we'll probably...
And he's got an office here, right? So does most of that take place here?
He does.
I mean, he has Lightstorm. There's offices for that. But, how much of his work is here versus...
As of right now, while he's writing, I would say he's here 98% of the time. Mm-hmm. And we call that his man cave. Mm-hmm. So he's been spending a lot of time in his man cave writing. He'll probably go into production in 4 to 5 months, I would imagine.
Oh, that's coming up. That's sooner than I thought. And that's going to be in New Zealand, though, right?
The live action part will be in New Zealand. And then he's at Manhattan Beach Studios. Uh-huh. So he will be there every day. And that will be a big shift. But we've gone through it once. So now, going through it a second time.
Right. But 2, 3, and 4 are going to be produced simultaneously in one big shot. So you're in for a long road here for a little bit, right?
Number 1 took about 5 to 6 years because they were writing the book as they went along and creating all kinds of new technologies. And so he really feels like yeah, of course they're going to create some new technologies because he just kind of has to do those kinds of things. But it's not like starting from scratch like they did the last time. So he really feels like he'll be able to do the 3 films in the same time period. But all of the motion capture and everything will be done here in the States, and then New Zealand will be doing the live action, and then all of the special effects are done through Weta. Right. Down in New Zealand as well.
And does he do, like, does he cut the film here at the house? Or is this sort of like the HQ for kind of editing? Because editing is taking place all over the world, I would imagine, with all the effects.
Editing is all in-house. The special effects are out.
Right.
No, he and his team do all the
physical editing is actually going to happen at the house here?
Yeah, it did for the first one. Yeah, they have editing stations down at the studio as well, because it takes teams.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll, he has this slogan: if it's not challenging, it's not fun. So the first one was, incredibly challenging. So he has to up the ante. But we're excited. I can't wait. I can't wait to see them.
Right. And this is the part where you're going to tell us all about what the plot of
Right. Exactly.
The most famously tight-lipped, project that there is.
Yeah.
Well, it's exciting
we call
stuff.
them the launch codes.
Is that what it is? Yeah. Well, it's all, I'm sure, resting in his head, and only parts of that information are vested in other individuals, except for maybe you. Yeah. Maybe and you won't even say, right?
If I told you, then I'd have to kill you.
Yeah, I know. And I like living, so
exactly.
I'm not even going to ask you.
Exactly.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Well, we got to wrap it up here in a couple of minutes, but there's a couple other things I wanted to talk about. The other thing is that this your sustainability advocacy extends even further, right, to garments. You have this red dress, what is it called? Red carpet, green dress program.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell me what that's about.
So for the last 6 years, we ran a contest. A dress design contest, red carpet, green dress. And the idea was it was a global dress design contest, and the idea was to be able to create a dress out of sustainable fabrics that would be worn by an actress, and then we made a tux, an actor, on the red carpet at the Oscars. And we did that for 6 years. The first year was when Avatar was at the Oscars, which was the idea. I thought I was going to be kind of a one-time thing, and then realized I'd opened up a can of worms, as it were, and realized just how devastating the fashion industry is on our environment as well.
Yeah, it's harder to do that math. I mean, when you look at your plate and with all the things that we've talked about, it's easier to kind of conceptualize the impact of that, but we so blindly just put clothes on, and we're even more divorced from the process of how that's created versus our food.
Right, exactly. I think what has come out of that, and it's something I started realizing very early on, that even making a sustainable dress isn't that sustainable, because you only wear those kind of dresses once, and if you're really, really brave, you might wear them twice.
Right.
So
the whole thing is...
it's silly. So, but what I ended up saying was that, it's not, red carpet green dress isn't just about a pretty dress on the red carpet. It's about the fact that we all wear clothes every single day from the moment that we're born until the day that we die.
It's a symbolic gesture. It's a way of messaging to millions and millions of people that watch that show.
It is.
To maybe think a little bit more about what that entails.
Right. Right. So I'm taking that a step further at this point, because that does reach a certain audience. I mean, it is the most watched red carpet in the world, certainly. It's important to, that's another motto in our family, is go big or go home, or, after
clearly
after Jim did his dive, it was go deep or go home. But I'm looking actively to create a clothing line that of clothes that people can wear every day. Because people just automatically, when they're interviewing me about red carpet green dress, they say, "Oh, you must wear sustainable clothes every day." And I say, "Oh, well, I wish I could," but it's really, really challenging to find jeans or a t-shirt,
right,
or and something that's environmentally friendly, that's produced in a way that's not devastating to the environment, and that's healthy for your body, healthy for the planet, all of those different things. So so that's that's one of my latest endeavors as well.
Right.
Is creating a clothing line.
Well, let me know when you have a men's line.
I'll do them both at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
Absolutely.
Where can I get that tux?
Yeah. Right. Well, this will be like everyday clothes. Yeah. A tux is easy. I mean, we can do that with our eyes closed. Right. I can totally put you in touch with those kinds of people.
Right.
But it's just like, the long sleeve t-shirt and the pair of jeans, or, a cute dress, or a pair of board shorts, or, whatever it might be. Something that you feel okay putting on every single day. And it doesn't kind of look like dorky and hippie. Yeah,
I know. That's the thing. Like there are some cool designers doing interesting things in this field, but there's a lot more that could be done. I feel like that's a wide open market, and the trick is figuring out how to do it so that it doesn't become exorbitantly expensive. Because when you take all of those things into account and you really do want to manufacture that garment in that way, you're looking at price points that don't make sense for most people.
Right.
So
that's the goal.
You know what I mean?
And that's what we're really distilling down, is to create the clothing line that will have a price point that people can afford.
Right. And it's hard to compete when you're competing with, sweatshops and, God knows where the environmental runoff of these factories. It's like you buy your t-shirt at the Gap or wherever and you don't think about it, but there's a huge impact to that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops, but I think there's a lot of growth opportunity in that sector. Yeah,
definitely. There's a great documentary that I just watched over the weekend that's called True Cost, and it's mind-blowing. And it's all about the fast fashion industry. Yeah.
Cool. So what's the next big project that you're excited about? Or is it just moving all this stuff forward?
I think it's moving.
Food Choice Taskforce, is that the focus?
It is. It is. I mean, I live and breathe that every single day, because I think that's the most urgent thing that we can all do right now to make the world a better place for our children. And it's something like we talked about before. It is as one simple, elegant thing that everyone can do, is just to look at what's on their plate and eat more plants.
So if someone's listening and they're inspired and they're ready to get active or get more active in some of the things that we've been talking about today, what are some resources that you can direct people towards, whether they're books or documentaries or some of the websites that are affiliated with the organizations that you're working on? I mean, where do you commonly direct people?
Well, you're a great resource, dude.
Well, if they're listening, they already know, but they're tired of me. This is about you.
I think Forks Over Knives is amazing. It's really eye-opening. They have a great website full of recipes and stories about real people every day who have turned around disease and lost weight and look great and have energy, all of those things. They've got cookbooks. The China Study has a new cookbook. They have plans. There's what is it called? My A Plant-Based Journey by Lenny Mulraith.
Oh, Lenny Mulraith. Yeah.
Mulraith? Yeah.
She's cool.
And that's actually a really great book. It's because it doesn't matter where you are in the journey. You can be just starting or 3.5 years into it, and it's got all kinds of great different ideas.
PCRM has their 21-day Kickstart program.
Yeah.
PCRM.org.
Yeah, and they're great. They're great. Dr. Barnard is...
He's amazing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, really awesome. Rip Esselstyn has great stuff, you know, and especially for guys who, you know, they kind of think that they've, you know, that guys got to eat meat, you know. This is a little side note, but it always kind of makes me chuckle, and I'll probably blush. But there was a great, speaking of PCRM, they did a great riff on the anti-smoking campaigns. The anti-smoking campaigns that really made a difference was when they put the big billboard up and they put the hunky cowboy on the billboard, Marlboro Man guy with the cigarette that was limp.
Yeah, I remember that.
And last year during National Meat Week, PCRM put out an ad with a guy standing next to a barbecue with a hot dog on a fork that was limp.
Okay.
But a lot of people don't connect those. It's like the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are so many connections with erectile dysfunction and eating meat that men don't really get.
Yeah, that's the way to get a guy to start paying attention.
Yeah.
If there's a guy who's struggling with that problem, you know, that's a way in.
Well, that's actually another thing that we're doing. Jim and I are executive producing a film called Men, Meat, and the Most Dangerous Myth. And it's all about the fact that, you know, men feel like they need to eat meat in order to be manly. And it's... I've actually spoken to you about it.
Is this the same as the Game Changers movie? Is that the
Game Changers?
That's the new working title. That's the title.
No,
of the
actually,
movie
that's
now,
the tagline.
Oh, okay.
It's Game Changers. Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah.
Where are they in the process of getting this?
We want you in there too.
I don't need to be in the movie. Where is everything with the movie right now? There's been a lot of talk about it. I mean, this movie's been a long time in the making. So,
well, it has. Luis Soyos, who he's just releasing Racing Extinction right now. And he's actually I believe he's in Paris with COP right now. So as soon as that's all really, and I think it releases tomorrow, December 2nd, I think.
Oh, Racing to Extinction?
Racing Extinction.
Racing Extinction, yeah.
And it's amazing.
I haven't seen it yet.
Anyway, but he's our director.
Of course, for people that are listening, he's the guy who directed The Cove.
Right, exactly.
Right.
And he's extraordinary.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
Yeah, so he's our director for Game Changers, and so that will kick into gear at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Big time. Yeah.
I think that project has the potential to really shift awareness and create some interesting conversations. So I'm excited for that to come out.
Yeah, just to have these, you know, totally ripped, awesome, sexy guys, you know, and they're all plant-based. Hello.
That's the way to get people to pay attention, right?
Yeah.
Back to the vanity part.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
Well, listen, this was amazing. The work that you do is beyond inspiring. And as I said at the outset, nothing but crazy, mad respect. I don't know where you guys find the energy to move all these projects forward and do it with such grace and attention to quality. It's really inspiring for me to, you know, watch from the sidelines and also, you know, sort of be part of the community through MUSE and sort of be adjunct to your mission. It's really a beautiful thing, and it's going to be exciting to see how some of these projects continue to blossom and unfold, and hopefully create more conversations and catalyze much needed change.
Cool. Well,
so thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for those beautiful words.
I appreciate you being here. If people want to connect with you, where's the best place for, I mean, you're everywhere on the internet, but where's the best place to direct them? SuzyAmis.com. Yeah. You're on Twitter, Suzy Musing on Twitter.
Suzy Musing on Twitter.
And you're on Facebook and all that kind of stuff.
And I've got Facebook. I got that on, yeah.
And the website for Food Choice Taskforce, what is that? Is there a website for that?
FoodChoiceTaskforce.org.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And they can go
so foodchoicetaskforce.org, SuzyAmisCameron.com, MUSEschool.org.
MUSEschool.org, of course.
redcarpetgreendress.com.
You have a lot of websites.
Any of the above.
Right, great. All right, well, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Peace.
Out.
Plants.
Groovy.
All right, we did it. That's it. What'd you guys think? I thought that was pretty awesome. Don't forget, lots of amazing resources in this week's show notes on the episode page at richroll.com, including ways you can learn more and get involved. So please make a point of checking all of that out. I put a ton of time into collecting, collating, and curating interesting, relevant content to help take your edification beyond the earbuds. And while you're at it, make a point to subscribe to my newsletter. I got weekly podcast updates, product offers, just interesting, relevant content, never any spam. I'm never going to spam you. If you want access to the entire RRP catalog beyond the most recent 50 episodes that you find on iTunes, well, I've got a free app for that. Just search Rich Roll in the App Store or on iTunes. It'll pop right up. Download it. It's free. You'll have the entire catalog in the palm of your hand. I want to thank today's sponsors, Thrive Market, your online market for super healthy food at 25 to 50% off retail shipped right to your home. Right now, one grand prize winner will walk away with a 1-year membership and $1,000 to spend at Thrive Market. And 10 other runners-up will win a free 1-year membership too. Enter at thrivemarket.com/richroll and never pay full price for healthy food again. Don't miss your chance to win big. Also, the National Academy of Sports Medicine. Go to myusatrainer.com for a free 14-day free trial of their fast and fun online program. That's myusatrainer.com. Restrictions apply. Visit myusatrainer.com for details. For all your plant-powered and RRP swag and merch, visit richroll.com. We got a great offer going on right now. All nutrition products are an astounding 50% off now through New Year's weekend. That's amazing. Also, we got signed copies of The Plant Power Way and Finding Ultra. We got Julie's guided meditation program. We got 100% organic plant power t-shirts. We got plant power tech tees for the gym, for running. We've got sticker packs. We've got temporary tattoos. We've got limited edition art prints. All kinds of awesome, cool stuff to take your health and your life to the next level. Keep sending in your questions for future Q&A podcasts to info@richroll.com. I've got online courses at mindbodygreen.com, the ultimate guide to plant-based nutrition, and The Art of Living with Purpose. Both really great courses. Go to mindbodygreen.com, click on video courses to learn more. Affordably priced, very helpful. I'm very proud of those courses. Thank you so much for supporting the show, for telling your friends, for sharing it on social media, all that good stuff. I hope everybody is having an amazing holiday season. I appreciate all of you, and I will see you back here next week. Just one episode this week, you guys. Take care. Be good to yourself. Be good to others. Bless you. Love you. Talk soon. Peace. Plants.